Thank you very much, everyone. It is my passion, evaluation. I think it's such an important thing. I can see most of you. Could I just have a show of hands? Can you hear me clearly? I have a microphone sitting in front of me, but if not, I can actually put it on. Everything's good. All right. So it's a PowerPoint presentation. So let me take you through that. And I really hope that you get a lot out of it. You don't have to necessarily take a lot of notes. I'm happy to share all this information with Alex, who can then forward it to you. But let me share my screen now and let's begin. Oh, I have to actually ask permission. It's been disabled, the screen sharing. If that's all right, if someone could give me screen sharing, that's fine now. Thank you. I'm sorry I didn't ask earlier. So I'm just checking. Can someone, I can see Daphne. Daphne, can you see my slides? Could you be my person just to... Fantastic. So let's talk about growing your evaluation skills. Just wonder, you'll see this symbol a couple of times, this little time for reflection. I want to ask you, what's your mindset? And I want you to be really honest. What goes through your mind when somebody says to you, hey, you're evaluating me? What I find is a lot of people do this. Oh, no, I have to evaluate Alex. No, I can't evaluate him. I'm not as good as him. A lot of people seem to go into panic mode, and they often think that they're not a good evaluator and they can't do the job. But I want to try and change your mind today. I want to tell you to think differently about evaluations if I could. These are a gift. These are actually a gift that you give people. If you become a good evaluator, you can help people grow. They might get that next promotion. They'll get confidence to do new things, and people will find out more of who they are. If they get good evaluations, they're far more likely to keep trying new things, and that's great for them, and it's great for your club. You might not realize this, but you've been evaluating your entire life. From the time that you tasted food, you were telling your parents what you thought about it. Right through school, right through university, if you've been there, at your jobs, even when you go to the movies with friends, you're evaluating. If I took you to the movies and I said to you, what did you think of the movie? I bet you wouldn't say to me, oh, I'm not qualified to talk about it. I'm not a film director. You would just naturally say things to me like, I really like the story. The characters were good. I did think I got a bit lost, halfway through, but overall I enjoyed it. You have been evaluating all your life. Today, and Toastmasters is just about learning some more tools that are specific to public speaking. So every one of you has the potential to be a very strong and helpful evaluator. Your opinion counts. Something I encounter, I've been a Toastmaster for 17 years. Some of the best feedback I get is from new people. New people, older people, it doesn't matter. If you're an audience member, your opinion counts. Speakers are trying to reach an audience, so don't worry how long you've been in Toastmasters, and don't worry about other people knowing more than you. That's normal. If someone's been doing it for 17 years, they probably will know more than someone who's been doing it for 2 years. Don't let it worry you or hold you back from having a go. Let it inspire you to learn more. And I'm going to tell you that even someone like me, I'm a work in progress, and so will you be as an evaluator. This year, I did win my district's evaluation contest, and it's all different being on Zoom. I had to learn some new things, and I actually learned a lot more. I looked in different places to learn, and I grew. So everyone can keep growing. My general tips for you to keep improving, I don't think we talk about this enough. Be curious. If you remember nothing else today, just become curious when you're listening to speeches. When you're really enjoying it and it's going really well, ask yourself why. Are you learning something? Are you entertained? Is the speaker very interesting? And the same thing happens when it's not going well. And I know for me, often if I find myself zoning out or I suddenly thinking about what's for dinner, sometimes I can actually pinpoint the moment where I lost a bit of interest or the speaker may not have engaged. So part of it is being curious. Why am I so engaged now? And how come other times I'm not? And often when you do this curiosity, you'll find things that you can use in your evaluation. My golden rule, I've always been taught, if the speaker were to do the presentation again after my evaluation, what 2 things would have the biggest impact? You might have 4 or 5 suggestions, but limit it to 2, the 2 that will have the greatest impact if the speaker were to stand up and do that speech again. What are the most helpful things you could say? A lot of people don't realize, but you can actually practice a lot at your club meetings. If there's a space on the agenda, put your hand up and say, yes, please, I would love to speak. But there's nothing to stop you evaluating all of the speakers at every meeting. You can just do that quietly. You can look for strengths and you can look for areas for improvement. Then when the evaluators give their feedback, you can compare what you've done with what they've done. This is a great way to practice your skills. And I do this before I'm in competitions. In your club, you're bound to have people who love evaluating, who's been winning your contests, who is giving helpful evaluations in the club already. You can watch and you can learn from them. And there's nothing wrong with, after you've done your evaluation, sending them a message. Could you give me some feedback on how I'm going? Have you got any tips for me to improve? And you can always find a buddy, an evaluation buddy, and together after the meeting, why not compare your notes and your suggestions just to see how you're going? I'm not sure if you've seen this proverb before. It's an Italian one, and it says, if you give someone a fish and you feed them for a day, but if you teach them how to fish, you feed them for a lifetime. I can't possibly teach you everything I've learned in 17 years, but I want to teach you where to go fishing. I want to teach you where to find information that's going to help you become a strong evaluator. I have a great sense of what we need to do as an evaluator is build a toolbox. If we need to learn what works and how to fix what doesn't work. So we recognize the good and we have suggestions to help people overcome things that perhaps aren't their strongest speaking points. One of the things I want to say to you is you've got to keep learning. As I've mentioned, you are a work in progress. Don't ever think, oh, I've got evaluating down pat. Keep growing. Keep looking for more information. And here's some easy ways to do that. Everybody in Toastmasters receives a monthly magazine. It's either posted to you or you can go online. If you follow Toastmasters International on the Facebook page, they often put up articles. On the one I've just shared here, if you can see down the bottom where my mouse is moving on the cover of the magazine, look down the bottom, speech writing tips and tricks. That's in this month's magazine. This is a place to go and learn and get tips to help you become a better evaluator. It's a great time. Now, some of you have probably zoomed into this meeting today, maybe for this workshop or to visit another club. Take this opportunity to go out there and go around the world and see other evaluators. And you can watch YouTube recordings of winning district evaluations. You can see the ones that are at the top in their district. This gentleman here is Kyle Murtagh. He's from Scotland. I think he's won a few times. He's very animated. You can learn a lot by watching him. I actually studied him in preparation for my comp because he has such an energy and a passion for evaluating. Might not have thought of this one. Your Pathways has a wealth of tools. So every project comes with descriptions. It tells you what to do and what not to do. These are tools that you can start to use to help other people. In level 3, for example, you'll do 1, maybe 2 electives, but there is nothing now to stop you opening up all those electives and having a look and gaining information. Let me show you. This is my level 3 in presentation mastery. The ticks, you can see the ones I've done, but there's nothing to stop me opening up these other ones like creating effective visual aids or using descriptive language. You have so many projects in Pathways that you can look at and you can be looking in there and learning, and these form the basis of your evaluations. World champions of public speaking have websites. They're on Facebook. They're on YouTube. Often they have their own channel, and they often have newsletters for free. So, for example, down the bottom there on the right-hand side in the red shirt, that is Lance Miller. And he sends out some fabulous, just short things to think about in terms of speech making. And he has very, very good videos. These are fabulous to share in your club as well as an educational. But watching these top-level speakers will help you to know what to look for as an evaluator and give you some tips how to fix things that people might need help with. Here's a little tip that I learned this year. I'm in an advanced club, and we've realized that we were looking at just Toastmaster content, so people who are Toastmasters. But my goodness me, one of the ways I calmed my nerves down this year for the district final was diaphragm breathing, breathing from really deep down in my diaphragm. And we learned that at my advanced club from watching an opera singer. Opera singers know all about breath and breathing and controlling nerves. So think outside the box. You can watch YouTube videos, listen to podcasts, read a wide variety of articles on public speaking, and read articles from writers as well. Maybe they're writing for novels, but you can take some of the wisdom from it and apply it to speeches. I want to just give you 2 quick examples of just some of the information that is out there. I will send all these through to Alex. If you'd like them, you can let him know. I'm going to try and pronounce his name. I hope I get it right. Dr. Dilip Abhayasakara. If anyone wants to correct me, I'm more than happy to be corrected. The 7 Habits of Highly Effective Evaluators. This is always the last thing I read before I compete. I'm just going to skim through it. I'm not going to give it all to you. It's just a 1.5-page document. Evaluators know why they're evaluating. It's all about the speaker. They're not retelling the story or upstaging the speaker. Number 2, they know that a speaker is quite sensitive about getting feedback, so they must reassure the speaker. So they're open to taking feedback. Following a sequence for psychological receptivity sounds very complicated, but basically it means go softly. Give them what they do first, make them want to listen to you, and then give them the suggestions. You know, always recognize what they did well before making those suggestions. Otherwise, they may just turn off. Number 4, it's just your opinion. Particularly if you're giving a feedback suggestion, don't say something like everybody thought, everyone in the room noticed. It can make a speaker feel quite intimidated. The only time I do talk about the whole room is if it's a positive. Everyone in the room looked engaged, or I noticed on the Zoom screen, everyone was really interested. It's okay then to do that. It's just a suggestion. We're just suggesting. We don't tell the speaker must do something. And they say the litmus test is whether the speaker actually picks up your suggestion and tries it. And a big part of that is how you present. If the evaluator is too pushy, the speaker may just reject and not listen further. And I think it's important that we use a very soft and encouraging tone. Number 6, don't just talk, demonstrate. So if you want to say to someone, I wish you'd had a bit more body language, find a point in the story, pinpoint it. When you were talking about the mountain, you could have put your hands up and showed me this idea of tall. Or if it was tiny, you could have held your fingers up to the camera even as tiny. Try to be specific and demonstrate the suggestion you're making. Number 7, this might sound a little strange. Evaluate with your whole self. And you know what I'm going to say to you? We can sum this up in 2 words. Be present. We have to make sure that we are completely present, that we are listening completely, feeling with our hearts and our whole selves. Another one that I want to talk to you about is 6minutesdelugan.com. This is not a current website now. It's not necessarily updated, but it still has lots and lots of fantastic information on there that you can look at. So what I'd like to do is kind of do something with you now. I'm going to go through some areas of speech making that he covers. I'm going to ask you first to think about what you look for when you're evaluating, and hopefully give you some more clues as we go through. Well, I wonder, you look for the speaker's purpose? I wonder if that's something that is uppermost in your mind when you're listening. And here's why he says it's important. Excuse me. You need to know what's the goal. Is it to educate, motivate, persuade, or entertain us? What's the main message that you've taken away? Was it a clear main message? Did you get a main message? Sometimes we listen to speeches and we're not sure. Why is this person delivering this speech? Are they the right person? If I stood up and did a speech about how I'm finding it hard to get really old, it probably wouldn't make sense at my age. But if I tell my mother's story as an elderly person, it makes sense. Does the person delivering the speech, is it the right speech for them to be giving? And was the objective achieved? At the end of the day, was I entertained? Did they persuade you? Did they motivate you? Did you learn something? If you know the purpose, you can then evaluate if the speech has purpose has been achieved. I wonder if you think to look at the speaker's enthusiasm and how they're connecting with the audience. This is a big one as an evaluator. Did they connect? How can you tell if someone is connecting? How can you tell if they're enthusiastic? What if they're too much? What if they just speak the whole time like this and it's full on and it never stops and it never changes? You can actually have too much enthusiasm or too little. So you, as an evaluator, are looking to see, have they got the right level of enthusiasm? Are there dips and changes in the way they address? Was there audience interaction? Was it effective? Did they ask your opinions? Did they invite you in? Did they acknowledge you, particularly on Zoom? Was the message you and we focused, or was it I and me? If I just stand here and say, I did this and I did that and I did this, it's very easy for the audience to feel not a part of things. But when we ask questions like, have you ever been scared? Have you ever tried that? We're inviting the audience in. So as an evaluator, be asking yourself, do I feel included in this speech? Am I being invited in? Is the speaker asking me questions that relate to me? That's a big one and often needs to be a suggestion early on for speakers to understand not to leave the audience behind. I wonder what you look for in an opening. What would you say was a good opening? I wonder if I was asking, I wonder what you would say makes a really good opening. This is what Mr. DeLugan suggests. He said you need a hook and it needs to draw the audience in from the opening seconds. Or did we just begin with it's great to be here today? Sometimes we do that, but in our speeches, there are some more effective ways. As an evaluator, you can be looking for these so you can affirm it, or you could even be suggesting these as points for improvement. People could start with a story. People love stories. They could start with a joke, maybe a startling statistic that gets our attention, a controversial statement, not too controversial, it's Toastmasters, or maybe they start with a really powerful visual. Maybe they're wearing or using a prop, or they have a picture. Try to be thinking and asking yourself, did this speech grab my attention from the word go? A big one as well is the opening tell you where the speech is going. Do you know what the presentation is about when the opening is over, or are you lost? And was the opening memorable? That's another great one with evaluating. What makes something memorable? If you can't remember a lot about the speech, what's happening? What aren't you getting that you need to help you remember? Structure is very important, and it's something that I always put into my evaluations because the structure is the thing that holds it all together. No matter how much beautiful language and variety you have, if you don't have a good structure, it's going to be hard for people to appreciate it. So you can look for things like transitions. You get lost in the speech, or is it nicely flowing along and you just move from scene to scene? Sometimes as speakers, we forget, we jump from one place to another, thinking the audience knows why we've done that. We can't leave our audience behind. What about the close? Was it effective? How was it done? What did they do? Did it connect or did it fall flat? And this is a big one as an evaluator. What opportunity was lost? So, for example, if you've just listened to a persuasive speech and they're really persuading you to take better care of yourself and to use this app on the phone to monitor your health, if they don't tell you at the end to get your phone out, if there's not a call to action, the opportunity could be lost. What is it that they can do to really capitalize on their speech? The other thing about speech structures, the more you learn, you'll realize there's many ways to tell a speech. Most of us do it in chronological, date order fashion. I did this, then this, then this. Have you heard of a suspended story? A suspended story, for example, might be, I could start, I was caught in the fire. I'm in a fire. I'm in a fire. I don't know what's going to happen. And then I could take the audience back in time to how my day began, and I can tell the story, and I return to the point of being in the fire, then finish the story. This is a fabulous tool that creates suspense. It has to be done very well so the audience isn't lost, but starting at a key moment of the story, going into the backstory, and then moving forward is a very powerful tool. And as you start to evaluate experienced speakers, you may see this, so it's good to be able to recognize it. But look, learn, Google other ways to organize a speech. And I wonder what you think of about a message that sticks, a message that you remember. What do you think are the key things that a speaker has to do so you remember their message? There's an old adage that says, if you don't know your message in 10 words or less, if you can't tell me your message in 10 words or less, it's not clear enough. And what happens is, if people have a very vague message, they tend to go off in tangents and they put a lot of extra information in. So as you're listening, ask yourself, is everything this speaker's saying, is it all reinforcing this message, or are they taking me here and taking me there? And it's hard for me to grab the exact message. This is a big one as an evaluator. Look and see if there's clarity in the message. I think we've talked about this a little bit. Was the audience invited in? You might notice in brackets there, it says cornered at a party. If ever you've been somewhere and someone's got you in a corner and they're talking and talking and talking, and you know that feeling you can't get a word in and you can't get away from them? That's what some people say it's like if you're speaking at and at people and not asking them in. So we don't want to be like that as speakers. We want to make sure that we're acknowledging our audience and inviting them in. Here's another thing for you. A lot of people don't realize when you make suggestions in Toastmasters, it doesn't always have to be that something was wrong. In that last point there, you might see a speech that was really good and the message may have been strong, but you might have seen another potential message. There is nothing wrong with you saying, I loved your message today, but I wondered if you considered this message as well. Sometimes this is a real eye-opener and it helps advanced speakers in particular to see something more in what they've done. So remember, it's not always about correcting people. Sometimes it's helping them to see more. I wonder what you think of when you think of strong delivery. If you're evaluating, what are you looking for? What do you hope to see? What are some suggestions that you could make? Is the speaker confident and passionate about their message? If someone doesn't really believe their message and they're very timid, it's awfully hard for me, and I'm sure for you as well, to really feel inspired or connected. Are they too rehearsed? Is it an unnatural style? And one of the big clues in this as an evaluator, if you're watching someone and they look very rehearsed or they're reading their notes and all of a sudden they come to life and they're really animated, that's a clue for you that whatever they're doing in that moment is what they should be doing more of. Usually, I find it's when there's dialogue and storytelling. Often people lose their nerves and they become more relaxed. So try and help them understand where they were at their strongest in their speech. So you could say, gosh, when you spoke about the dog getting out and you were chasing the dog down the road, you were so funny, you were so natural. Pinpoint, help them understand those moments when they really were at their best as a speaker. Other words and actions in sync. If I look to the camera today and I go, I'm really excited to be here, I don't think you're going to believe me. Everything has to be together. If it's sad, if the speaker is talking about a sad moment, they shouldn't be grinning and happy. They should be feeling the words. These are the things you can help them recognize as an evaluator. What part does language play? How much time do you spend as an evaluator thinking about language? Language is a huge part of connecting with an audience. Did the language add something special, or did it distract? Was it too complex? If it's a technical speech, most of us don't know the material. It needs to be very simple. If you have a very, very involved story and there's lots of big words and descriptions, particularly with English as a second language speakers, especially as we go around the world, if it's not simple, it can be awfully hard for people. So again, is the language easy to understand and relatable? Did the language capture the story's mood? So if I'm doing a sad story, I would expect the language to be quite emotive. You know, ask yourself, are you feeling the story through the words? How did it make you feel? And what didn't you feel, but you could have if the language had been better? That's another one that's great. If you're watching something and it's a sad story, but you're not really feeling it, often it's the delivery and often it's the words. The words aren't really telling us how the speaker really felt. Rhetorical devices, so your metaphors and similes, you know, those little things that just add life and imagery to a speech. If the speaker uses them, make sure you point them out. So remember where they were, pinpoint them so you can genuinely encourage the speaker. If you think of one that they could have used, you can suggest that as well. And, you know, did these rhetorical advices add something? They usually do. So what was it? Was it enjoyment? Did it help you understand a concept more? Always curiosity, asking yourself, what are these things doing for me? With language, did the speaker miss an opportunity? So, for example, if something happens and it's very dramatic in the story, are they using language to show characters' reactions, for example? Should they be using more dialogue to capture the moment? And what else could add impact? I've seen speakers use poems, quotes, songs, even a current catchphrase. If there's something that's really big in your town right now, if there's a campaign going on or a slogan, how could they use it? Could they do a comparison of two different things? Is there a current issue that they could relate it to? And was there energy in the vocal variety all the way through? As I mentioned before, sameness, where people are shouting the whole time and really energetic, is not vocal variety, it's sameness. So be aware of sameness. Is there up and down? Is there quiet moments and animated moments? Really good vocal variety is a bit of a journey. Getting towards the end here, what do you look for in stage use? And yes, I'm going to say to you, even on Zoom, if you haven't watched the world champion last year, Mike Carr, please watch his speech and you'll see what I mean about using all the different corners and the depth as well in the Zoom screen. Was stage use underused or overused? If there's too much movement, it can get distracting, but purposeful movement adds interest. Was there a clever use? Did someone do something on Zoom you've not seen before? Was there a missed opportunity? Were you sitting there going, oh, they could have done this or that? Suggest it as an evaluator. And a big one, on the big stage, most professional speakers will deliver their key points right down the middle. They usually stand in the middle. They might do part of their speech on the sides, but they normally come back to the middle, and it can actually be similar on Zoom as well. I don't know if you've heard of holograms. If you haven't, look up holograms. They're very helpful. Holograms is where you create an image in the audience's mind. So I could go over to one side of my Zoom screen even, or on a stage, and I could talk about a picnic that I had with my family. Then when I come back to the middle or the other side of the stage, I can simply say, like that picnic, and I only have to refer to the scene that I've created. Holograms are fabulous for bringing speech to life, and they also save words. I don't have to say, remember the picnic I talked about in 1932? I just have to say, like the picnic, and I can just simply point. Look up holograms, they're fabulous. And a big one for me on Zoom, how did the speaker enter and exit the stage? Or, of course, on Zoom, be watching the person you're evaluating before they get on stage. See if they're looking confident or nervous. And on Zoom, what a lot of people are doing, especially in contests, they're handing back to the Toastmaster. And instead of standing there smiling and waiting, they start doing this. And they've all got their heads down and they're all trying to turn off their cameras until the camera goes off you. Make sure you're looking down that camera and staying. These are little things that can help people put polish on their preparations when they realize that they're actually visible from the time they go to speak. Humor. What part does humor play? You'll rarely see a winning world champion without some humor. So ask yourself, was the humor used and was it safe and appropriate given the audience? And also, was it appropriate for the times you're in? So, if there's just been some terrible disaster, a joke that might have been all right before that might be too risky if it looks like you're not being sensitive to what's happening. So always just make sure the speaker is being sensitive to what's happening in the world and, of course, to the audience. Did they deliver humor well? Did they pause after the punchline so we could actually laugh? If you start Googling and learning about humor, you're going to find so much information and it will help you so much as an evaluator. And again, humor, was it relevant to the speech? We don't just put humor in for the sake of it. If a speaker's put in a joke and it has no connection to the speech, you could gently suggest that perhaps it was superfluous. Perhaps it didn't really add anything. And how do you know that what a speaker is saying is believable? What builds trust? So be thinking as you're evaluating, why would I believe this person? For example, if they use statistics and stories, and this is, key to believing what they're saying or being persuaded, have they given you a trustworthy source? Don't just take information at face value. Be looking to see if your speaker is really giving you the source of it and it's a good, reliable source. The speaker established credibility. So I've seen speeches where people have spoken for 5 or 6 minutes, and then at the end, they tell me that they're a research scientist or they've, got 3 people in their family with this illness. It's much better to do that early in the speech to make sure that people know early on that you can trust what they're saying. They have experience in this. And does the speaker come across as knowledgeable as against arrogant and alienating? So I am really hoping today that I might come across as knowledgeable, but I sure hope I'm not coming across as though I know it all or I'm better than you. I'm trying very hard just to share my knowledge, but I don't want to act like I'm some kind of expert. This is what I've learned over the years and I'm trying to share it. But if someone comes up and they look a little conceited, it will absolutely distance them from the audience. So, are they sharing their knowledge in a fairly humble and nice way? So just remember, your focus is always to give the most helpful evaluation that you can. I love this picture. Just use the right tools for the right reason and the right time, not to look good and only if it fits. Sometimes I see people learn little tricks in evaluating and they shoehorn them in. They try to use them all the time, particularly in contests. They're trying to win because they look good. It's never about that. It's always about helping the speaker and using the right tool in the right way at the right time. I don't know if you have Dr. Seuss in Uganda. I'm not sure. Alex will have to tell me, but Dr. Seuss is a children's writer, and this is the Cat in the Hat. And there's a lot of truth in Dr. Seuss, even though it's for kids. It says the more that you read, and I'll say watch as well, the more things you'll know, and the more you learn, and the more places you will go. And I believe if you apply yourself as evaluators, the more places the people you evaluate will go as well. I would not have had half the success I've had all the opportunities in Toastmasters without people giving me very, very good evaluations. So keep going, keep growing, and you will become a better speaker and a better evaluator. And something people forget, becoming a good evaluator is one of the quickest ways to become a better speaker. It's a win-win situation. And you never know, if you keep working hard, maybe one day, like me, you might even go all the way to the top of your district. Don't believe you can't do that. I'm telling you, I'm not special. I've just worked hard. I've had good mentors, and you can do that as well. So I hope that was helpful. I hope you've picked up some tips and tools. I'm sorry it's a bit heavy on content. Alex, do I have time to take some questions, or would you like me to move on? What would you prefer?
Western, you guide it?
Yes, thank you very much, Lois Beaton. I think we can take some questions because we are running out of time. I haven't listened to a better speaker on evaluations. I'm really so excited. I remember when I struggled as an evaluator at the beginning of my career as a Toastmaster. My mentor told me, please, Wilson, stop and learn. I had to stop for 2 months and I came back as a better evaluator. Thank you very much. From your presentation, these are the takeaways for me, that evaluations are a gift to the speaker, that anyone has potential to become a better evaluator. And we can keep growing as evaluators. We can practice at club level, we can evaluate people silently and grow as evaluators. We can keep learning about evaluations. When we focus on public speaking, we need to watch YouTube videos focusing on winning district evaluations. We need to learn from other sources apart from Toastmasters. We need to be sensitive when evaluating speakers. The best way to become a better speaker is by learning how to evaluate speeches. We need to take into consideration the speaker's purpose. We need to focus on the key aspects of the speech. For instance, the opening structure, credibility, stage use, clarity, appropriate language, use of dialogue, to mention but a few. And so I would like to request members who are attending this meeting, I think 3 members, to ask Lois some questions. We have colleagues with questions.
An excellent presentation. And the one myth that you have busted is that they think that they have to be better speakers than the person who's speaking. And I hope we've all learned that our opinion as an audience member is valid. And so we just have to learn how to listen and pay attention and be present. And I've learned a lot. So the question that I have is, given that we have 2.5 minutes to 3.5, I think, you gave so many things that one has to look out for. Look out for the opening, look out for use of humor, look out for whether or not they connect, etc., etc. How do you focus on what to pick up and report on in 2.5 minutes to 3.5 minutes? I suppose just I'd like to know, what are your top tips on how to focus on what to share?
That's a great question. And that's very much on my mind as well when I move into evaluation contests, because you've got to try and cover a lot of stuff. So I think it goes back to the purpose for me. So I think the purpose does tend to dictate a lot what you're looking for. So if someone, for example, is trying to entertain me, I guess I'm trying to see if they keep energy and fun going through the speech. I'm looking to see if they're using storytelling that is actually relatable. So it's humor that's appropriate, relatable. I think as a general rule, I do tend to look always at structure. I always tend to look at gestures and vocal variety and language. I find language is a very telling thing about a speech. It tells me a lot about the speech. So usually in my evaluations, I try to be very succinct. So I say it once and I say it well. What I see in a lot of evaluations is people will say something and then they'll say it again and they'll sort of reword it. So they might say something like, the structure was very good. I could follow it very easily. And then they'll add something like, so I didn't actually get lost in that. You know, when I was listening to you, I stayed with you. Try and be very succinct. It's definitely an art evaluation in competitions. You've got so little time to get your message across. So try to practice not using superfluous words. Say it once and say it well. If, for example, you say something like, I felt perhaps the speaker could have used more vocal variety, then I would say, for example, when the dog got out, I felt she could have shouted and yelled. And, you know, when she was speaking to her mother, she could have used a softer voice. I try to have examples, and again, short and sharp. So I've covered quite a bit in that. I haven't taken a lot of time. I've raised the main point that they need to work on vocal variety, and I've given them 2 suggestions where they can. So I hope that's a little helpful. It's definitely just practice as well, but you can't cover everything. So again, 2 points, your suggestions, the 2 main things that will make the biggest difference, and the other things, the genuine things that you can compliment the speaker that they did well. I hope that helps, Connie. It's definitely also experience.
Sure, thanks a lot.
Any other questions? If anyone watching is a competitor and would really love to try and win, I'm going to tell you the best thing I can tell you is never try to win, because the minute you try and win, your focus is on you. Just keep your eyes off the prize. I know they say keep your eyes on the prize. I don't agree with that. I think keep your eyes on the speaker. Just put all your energy into helping that speaker be the best they can be. I can't say that to you enough, that if you're in competitions, don't try and win, don't try and be fancy. Just put all your energy into making that speaker feel fantastic about what they did well and give them helpful feedback. I can't say that enough to you.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much for all the insights. I have a question. Have you come across a speaker who is completely ill-prepared and you know, you're really feeling maybe a little bit disappointed even, because you've probably done your prep to do the evaluation and this speaker has just turned up? I mean, and when you're giving evaluation, like you've indicated, you need to encourage the speaker, but in this particular case, there's almost hardly anything to go on. I don't know how you'd handle such a situation.
So how I would probably handle that is, I'm not going to whitewash people, but even if it's rough, I would still say, well, at least they're here. So I'd praise them for at least coming along and having a go. I would try and find what is good in what they've done, that any potential I can see. So maybe the topic was good. Maybe there's a lot of potential. The message is relevant for the times. I try to find the good in what they've done, even though that's hard sometimes. Then my suggestion would probably go something like, gosh, you know, I could see so much potential here, and it just seems like perhaps enough work wasn't done for that to reach its potential. So I'm not actually saying to the speaker you didn't do enough, but I just express that I would love to have seen what might have happened if, you know, that kind of approach, that I wonder if you'd had a bit more time. And, you know, you could even say, like, you could say something like, it's such a good topic. I really encourage you to put a bit more work into this and come back and do it again. You know, you can be very nice. I don't think it's our place to, we don't know what's going on for people. There might be some legitimate reasons. Maybe sometimes they're lazy, but sometimes we don't know what else is going on. So I wouldn't come in hard, but I certainly would make nice suggestions like, I wonder how much more powerful it would have been if there'd been more work. I wonder how much more the speaker would have connected if they'd practiced a bit more. Does that help? You can kind of take that gentle kind of encouragement to do a bit more next time.
Very much. Thank you. Thank you.
It's okay. Someone's asked me, how does emotional intelligence fit in evaluation? Well, that's a big question. How does emotional intelligence? I think that comes back to using your whole self. I think being aware of just trying to immerse yourself in the speech. And just like that last answer, I think it's just remembering always we have to be encouraging. A few years ago, in one of the district contests, there was a speech with which I disagreed enormously. It went against many things that I believe, but it wasn't my job. And it was widely later considered to be inappropriate, but it wasn't my job to put the speaker down or their beliefs. So I just had to focus on the content, and I did. It was particularly demeaning to women. So in our country, that did not go down very well at all. And what I did, the approach, just very similar to what I just said to Deborah, I just had to say, I wondered if it appealed to all of the audience, you know, that kind of approach. So with the emotional intelligence, I think it's really maturity, isn't it? I think you can't let anything push your buttons. You've just got to stick to the job at hand, which is speaking. And you can certainly talk about a topic that you might think, gee, I wonder if that would have alienated some of the audience. But I think the emotional intelligence side is just tuning in with your whole self, you know, what you're feeling, what you're experiencing, being aware of any other reactions around you. So we had a speaker who made great jokes about divorce in a meeting a few weeks ago, and it triggered one of the members in our club. They got quite upset because it wasn't a fun experiencing for them. So that emotional intelligence, I think that's what Brenda is asking me, but just to be aware, I think it's awareness and sticking to the task at hand. First and foremost, you're to encourage speakers. I hope that answers you, Brenda. I hope that's helpful.
I think that's all the questions we got. Wilson, are you on the call?
Thank you for the opportunity, everyone.
Well, Wilson tries to join. Really, thank you, Lou, for making this happen. Yeah, I know Lou from another club, so it was just kind of easy for me to get her here, but we don't take it for granted. There's so many things you could be doing in Australia right now. It's in the afternoon, but you chose to come to Kampala Sunrise. Really, thank you so much. President Anne, do you have any one thank you as Wilson tries to get back in the room?
Yeah, thank you so much, Lou. This has been a very, very fruitful morning for us. We are really, really excited that you could come and share your tips, because evaluation is, for me, one of those areas that I've really found difficulties with. But with your tips this morning, it has been very encouraging, and I look forward to now taking in more evaluation roles. And I do believe that everyone on this call has really, really taken great tips on evaluation. So thank you for taking this time. It's very resourceful, and I will take all the notes that Alex is going to share with us for future evaluation tips. So we really appreciate taking your time. As let's give a round of applause. Thank you so much.